Once upon a time, in the land of Omoda village, lived two orphans, Ikena and his junior sister Nene. These two orphans lost their parents when Ikena was 10 years old. Since then, they started suffering. They had nothing to eat and no one to care for them or help them. None of their relatives would want to take them in. All their prayers were for them to die so that they could take over their parents' inheritance. Ikena and his junior sister would always roam about the village, hoping to see a helper or even disposed food particles to eat. Upon all their toilings day and night, they hardly see what to eat because people hardly trash food in the village. In order to get good food to eat, Ikena started fetching water and firewood for people in exchange for food. They continued like this till one day, the whole village had a dancing competition among the females. Nene was part of this competition. At the end of the dancing, to their greatest surprise, she won the competition. Nene's victory was a breakthrough for her and her brother. Since then, she started dancing for every occasion, and each time she danced, people would give her lots of money. This money is what they used to feed themselves and take care of their minor needs. People started calling Nene the best dancer. No one ever comes close to her when it comes to dancing. Nene, each time she danced, those watching would feel like she shouldn't stop dancing. It seems like her dancing steps are improving by the day. People started liking her, and each time she danced with other ladies, it seemed like others were not part of the dance because people's attention and focus were always on her. Though they struggled to survive, each time Nene danced together with other ladies, she would share all the money she got equally among themselves. But this was not enough for others. They developed jealousy against her, looking for ways to disqualify her from every dancing competition. One day, the king made an announcement that his son, the prince, would be coming back from abroad. And he invited all the lady dancers in their village to partake in a dancing competition. He added that whoever wins the dance shall be the prince's wife if it pleases the prince to take her as a wife. This created tension among the ladies in their community. They were scared because they believed that with Nene being part of the competition, they had no chance with the prince. After all, Nene would always win as usual, and the prince would take her as his wife. The thought of this was unbearable for them, especially to Wanka, the second best dancer. She believed she could have a chance with the prince if Nene is not part of the dance, as automatically she would win the dance competition. For her to be the winner of this dance, she must disqualify Nene by all means. Then, they started plotting ways to disqualify her from taking part in the dance. Because Swanka and the royal family were in good terms, she went to the king and convinced him to make a strict rule that anyone who must partake in the dancing competition must wear a shoke. She told the king that this would make the occasion colorful and king-like. But she made this rule because she knew the fabric is expensive and there was no way Nene could afford it. The king approved her idea and made the rule. When Nene heard the criteria for participating in the dancing competition, she cried bitterly because she knew there was no way they could afford the clothes. Some days later, Wanka went to Nene's house to visit her. When she came to their house, she saw Nene crying. She felt happy because she already knew the reason why she was crying. She told her that the king is wicked, and she continued by saying that the king should have stated it clearly that he doesn't want his son to marry a poor girl than to put these criteria that are unaffordable by the poor. Nene agrees that she may be right, but she's not coming to dance for the prince to choose her, but because she wants to dance for the royal house. She wept bitterly and later begged Nwaka to spare her one of her mother's ashoke, as her mother has varieties of such clothes. But Nwaka refused to help her. She stated that her mother would not want a stranger, talk more of a poor and stinking one, to share her lapper. Meanwhile, she had shared some of her mother's clothes among their dancers, whom she knew she was better than at dancing. It pained Ikena that this golden opportunity would pass his sister. He thought of what to do to buy the clothes, but could not think of anything, because the clothes would cost a fortune to obtain one. Because he wanted his sister to partake, even if she didn't get to marry the prince, the experience would be enough for them. He went and leased their father's holy land and purchased the wrapper for his sister, with the agreement that the land would be returned whenever he brought double of the money. When he gave Nene, his sister, the clothes, she was so happy. Out of happiness, she ran to Wanka's house and showed her the clothes. She told her that she would be partaking fully in the dancing competition. This got Wanka annoyed, but she smiled at her in pretense. Then she thought of her next action immediately. So, the next day, she went to Nene's house, stole the clothes and burnt it. When Nene noticed the fabric was missing, she looked for it everywhere but couldn't find it. She decided not to take part in the competition again. This pained Ikena the most because he hoped that after the competition, he would sell back the clothes and combine the money with whatever his sister would get from the dance to pay off their debt. Nene decided not to tell her friends what had happened to her. She pretended that everything was normal. 4 days before the prince returned, Nene and Nwaka went to fetch water from the stream. This stream has 2 sides, demarcated by a local bridge. One side is where people fetch their normal water, while the other side is filled with quicksand, and no one is allowed to enter there because many of the villagers who by mistake had fell into the quicksand were sunk in it and no one could see them. News had it that Nene's mother fell into the quicksand and her father, trying to save her, fell in there too. And that was how they both lost their lives. No one could find their corpse because the quicksand was too deep and large and the villagers lacked what it would take to dig it. The villagers always said that whoever falls into the quicksand has buried himself. When Nnenne and Nwaka got to the stream, Nnenne decided to open up to Nwaka, saying that she had lost her uniform for the dance, but her brother promised to get her another one before the competition. This got Nwaka so angry that she thought to herself that the best thing to do was to eliminate Nnenne, since her brother was bent on doing anything to put her in the dance. Then she took Nnenne to the bridge side and asked her if she could jump into the quicksand. She told her that if she jumped into it, she would convince her mother to give her one of her ashoke to wear for the competition. Nnenne refused. She told her that no one had ever fallen into the quicksand and come out alive. She refused to jump. She told Nwaka that she would rather not partake in the dance than to jump into the quicksand. But before she could finish what she was saying, Nwaka pushed her into the quicksand and ran home immediately. Ikena came back from the farm that same day. He looked for his sister Nnenne, but could not find her. He asked all her friends, but none of them agreed to have seen her. This got him worried. He waited for the rest of the day, but still, his sister did not come back. When it was midnight, and he still could not find his sister, he alerted the whole village, and they all started looking for her. They searched everywhere, but could not find her. They told Ikena not to worry. Maybe she went to see a friend and decided to sleep over. But he refused. He knew all was not well with his sister because she never stayed out late for the first time or even go anywhere without his consent. This was strange. For the first time, the quicksand swallowed somebody halfway. Norma did not sink completely. The quicksand covered her up to her shoulder level. Beside the stream was a big palm tree owned by Joto, the palm wine tapper. Every morning, the palm wine tapper would always come to harvest the wine produced by the palm tree. That fateful morning, the next day after Nnenne went missing, Joto had come as usual to tap his wine. Then he heard a beautiful voice singing, Joto, 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 kene kene na Joto, kene kene na Joto, inamiye di mere ya, ihukiye di mere ya, wakese bobola, wakese bobola, bulite mmiri gbalaga, bulite mmiri gbalaga, emere m ihe ọjọọ, gịnị ka m mere dị njọ, gịnị ka m mere nwa ka ego na mgbara ego dị mma si na chi, na mmara mma dị mma si na chi, nwakọ gịnị ka m mere gị ijiri chọọ m n'ọgwụgwụ, nwakọ gịnị ka m mere gị ijiri chọọ m n'ọgwụgwụ. Joto, 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 biko bịanụ nyere m aka. Joto, Joto, biko bịanụ nyere m aka. Ihe ọma i mere m n'ụwa, Chukwu ga-agọzi gị. Joto, 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 biko bịanụ nyere m aka. The palm wine tapper looked around but could not see the person singing. He never thought of looking at the direction of the quicksand because he never believed anyone could survive in the quicksand. So he left. The next day, he went back as usual, and the same thing repeated itself. He looked for the voice but could not find it. On the third day, when he was going to tap, he prepared very well. He said to himself that if the same thing happens again, he must find the person and find out what she wants from him. When he climbed the pine tree as usual, the voice came again, calling, singing the same song. He dropped everything and paid closer attention to where the voice was coming from. He realized the voice was from the quicksand. So he climbed down and went closer to the place. There, he saw a ladylike upper body above the quicksand, and the other part was deep in the sludge. He constructed a hook-like structure and tied it firmly to a strong rope. He used this to drag her out of the quicksand. He quickly took her to the other part of the stream, bathed her, and took her home. He took care of her and gave her food and clothes. After Nene regained some strength, she explained everything that had happened to her to Jodo, and she pleaded with him not to tell anyone. Then, Jodo told her that the prince will be coming back the next day, and he has been contracted to tap for the royal house. He told her that she would be going with him to the palace, even though she would not dance, because the dancers have already been chosen and she is not among them. On the day of the prince's return ceremony, everywhere was busy. People far and near had come to see their prince and witness the dancing competition and the person the prince would choose to marry. Nwanka, knowing that she had no competitors since Nene is no longer in the picture, was so excited that she was going to be the prince's wife and the princess. She said to herself that no one would hear anything about Nene once she became the princess. She would give her a befitting burial, and everyone would forget about her. After the prince returned, the ceremony began with the dancing competition. During the dancing, Nene and the palm wine tapper entered, but no one noticed them, as all their focus were on the dancers. Ikena, on the other hand, refused to go to the palace, as life had never been the same since his sister went missing. He thought of committing suicide because he had nothing to live for, since he had not just lost his sister, but also their means of survival, his father's land. He didn't know how to get the money to pay back the person he leased their only land to. He hardly see food to eat because he had no land to cultivate. After rattling through his whole thoughts, he went inside, took a rope, and tied it on a tree. As he was about to hang himself, he heard a voice calling him and yelling, "Nene is back." He paid closer attention and started running towards the voice. The girl calling told him that his sister is back and she's in the palace. He ran past the girl and ran to the palace. By the time he got to the palace, the dancing competition was over and Nwanka was declared the winner. Her joy knew no bounds. Her dream had finally come to pass. The prince stood up congratulated her, and hugged her. When it was time for the prince to choose his wife, the prince stood up and congratulated Nwanka once again. And then he said to the people, "I am amazed by what I see, but I wouldn't like to make the winner my wife, for I have another choice among us, whom my eyes have caught." His father told him to go ahead and make his choice. Then he went down directly to where Nene was hidden and took her to his father. This was when other people noticed her presence. Everywhere was filled with people shouting for joy. Ikena did not know when he started crying. And Nwaka, immediately she saw Nene, she fainted. This was an unimagined moment, a moment of joy for some people and sorrow for others. The prince was surprised at what was happening. Is the joy because he picked a wife? But he noticed it was not just that. So, after the king blessed them, the prince asked Nene the reason for the people's reaction. She explained to him that no one expected her to be here because she had been missing for days now. The prince asked her what happened, and she said nothing. Then, the palm wine tapper stepped in and told the prince everything that had happened. All that Nene told him happened to her. Without wasting time, the prince ordered that Nwanka be arrested and locked up in the palace prison. After everything, Nwanka confessed how she had burnt the clothes Nene bought initially and other things she had done to ensure Nene did not ruin her chances of being with the prince. But she never knew that anything that does not belong to you, no matter the struggle, would never come to you. Nwaka was punished according to their tradition. Nene and the prince lived happily. The prince helped them acquire their father's land back and placed Ikena on a good job. He also rewarded Joto, the palm wine tapper.